What's that? No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I got a little cold. It's the weather. I feel like everyone's got some, but what are you going to do? That's not the point of this. Like I said the other day, we can't slow down. I didn't feel like turning around today, so I didn't. I didn't want to do that. Do I have to do that every time now? I mean, because to be honest with you, sometimes that's a production for me to turn around first and talk over there, and then come back over here. I mean, that's going to exhaust me, just honestly. Um, yeah. Steve Weiner here from GetRubix.com, and today we're going to go forward with the part 2 of our deep dive into the V6 code. Today I want to focus specifically on one of the biggest changes, which is the way we're dealing with the user data. So enjoy. It's like some sinus pressure as well, but it's getting better. We don't have to do this now. Oh, okay, we'll talk about this later. I think it would be cool to talk about how we do some of the things. So the main thing is, if you've been following the solution, is how we dealt with the user data. We started by staging it somewhere and moving it, and then when the new profile was created, we would bring it back. We tried using Azure Blob Storage for this. There's a version where we use Azure File Shares, but ultimately, it kind of took a long time. There was risk involved. So, I mean, in a perfect world, we'd like to not move the user data, and thanks to some feedback from folks on Discord, you know, we were able to come to the realization that we could just keep the user SID profile and change it. Okay, so this was the idea for how we would approach dealing with the user data. So if you could follow me here, you see, let's take Rick Jones, right? Rick Jones exists on a PC in tenant A in the Rubix Dev tenant. And that is a profile locally that exists with a SID. And of course, that profile is owned by its own SID. Once we log in with the new credentials, what happens, and what was happening for a while, is you saw the Steve Capacity tenant, which is the target tenant, and tenant B, you get a whole new profile created. If they're the same name, that's where we were getting that weird appended, few characters on the end. It gets its own SID, and the old account sits there, which we can later delete, and we could try to rename. But what we're doing now is, on that last reboot, we're actually deleting the entire profile of the new user, but we are capturing the SID. Then we take the old profile and just change the SID owner. And that allows us to have pretty much a seamless experience. So I want to talk about how we're doing that. So these are just going to be excerpts from Start Migrate, with the first one being getting the original user info and capturing it. So basically, I'm going to walk you through those functions, and this all exists in Start Migrate. So we have to get original user info. We have to essentially construct object and variables, right? And they have to be global because it's going to be inside of a function. And then we have to write to the registry. And the registry is great because that's how we're going to go get it later. So what we did is we have our function. Call it get original user info. Okay, so when we define the parameters, we're actually just defining everything up here. So the first one is the original username. And we're getting that the way we always get that, which is the class Win32 computer system, select object username, and then we call out username. Okay, the second parameter is the SID. Now the SID we were getting in multiple lines. We kind of put all that together now. So the new object is system security principal nt account. Pass in that first value. Okay, we translate, Translate. Oh, actually, hold on. This should be outside here. Translate that to system security principal security identifier, and that's the SID, right? And then we can just dot value to get the string out of there. We need 2 more pieces to make this work. We need the UPN, which we're calling the original. Oh, that was original. Hold on. I'm sorry. This was original user. I'm probably going to change this to, in an upcoming fix, to original instead of username, probably UPN or something. But right now, when you're writing these things and you're naming variables and doing a million things, your just brain goes off. So hindsight's 2020. Okay, so in order to get the name correctly, there's a few places to get it. So if you're like, well, if you're seeing me do any of this stuff and you're wondering, well, why is he getting this there? It's because it was the most consistent place to do it. There are probably many places to get some of these values. The problem is, how do we get it consistently, especially when we start scaling? That's definitely the challenge. Original user SID. It's going to be identity store cache, identity cache, original user SID, and we can do name equals username. Great. Last thing we need to make life easy, even though we can string it together later, is the original profile path. Original profile path, that just gives us that, C users, username, whole thing. Get item property value is get item property value path, and here we're going to do HKLM software. They store all these. Microsoft, this one is Windows NT, current version, profile list, and of course we can pass that SID in, and we want the value of profile image path. Okay, and the last string we pass through is our settings reg path, because of course settings is the JSON. Wait, hold on a second. Reg path equals settings.json. Settings.reg path. Wow, need more coffee. Okay, so once we have these values set up, we kind of assemble this global variable. Original user info, and we just kind of tie it all to what we just pulled, right? So original user, original user SID equals original user SID. Original username equals original username, and original profile path. Original profile path equals original profile path. Cool. So that gets set there. Now, one thing I did that I kind of messed up is right after that I did not messed up, but we have an extra step here. So for each key in original user info dot keys, I'm actually doing 2 things here. I'm making a global variable and writing to registry. But as I'm doing it, it occurred to me, I've already made the variable here. So you'll see the code in there for new variable name key. We're going to get rid of that. There's no need to have the global variable there. Because the global variable will be original user info dot thing dot original user SID. So we don't need an original user SID global variable. So That's going to be removed. If not by the time you watch this, then very, very soon, because it's just unnecessary. We don't need it. So what we can do is the first thing after we iterate through that is we will check the value. So if the string is null or empty, and of course the string being original user info key, close that off. So if it's empty, we're going to log failed to set key to registry, because really all that's left is to write to the registry. And log, if you look at the top, there's a function called log, and that just basically takes our input message, appends a timestamp to it, and spits it out. So this is the equivalent of write output, essentially. So that's what we're using there. Else, okay. Probably should include the else there. I've been doing that today so far. I leave the else out and just have the brackets. That's not going to go well. We're probably going to have problems with that. We just add it. So we do reg add, reg path, reg key. Key. The type is a string. And the value is the original user info key. And we will do out host. Oop. And what we could do after that is write set key to original user info key at reg path. Cool. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so if we look in our lab machine at something that's been already went through this process, and we look at Intune migration, you can see we've set those items here. So we've set original user profile path. We've set the original user, the user name, which is the UPN, and the original user SID. So those are going to be important later when we have to call on them. So if you've seen the new profile script, really the only thing we're doing to this process here is get the new user SID and write new user SID to registry. That's it. Literally. So we're going to do a function called get new user SID. And that's going to take in similar parameters. We don't need everything. So this is going to take in our reg path again from the settings. Reg path equals settings dot reg path. New user is going to be get WMI object class Win32 computer system select. You'd be an expert at getting a user after this because we do it so much. Select object username dot username, and we're going to do the new user SID. New object system security principal NT account, and we're going to pass this the new user. Translate to security system security dot principal dot security identifier, and we want the value of that. Cool. So here all we have to do is put that in the registry. So this doesn't even have to output somewhere as a global variable. Yeah. So we can say, actually, let's check that first. So we'll say if, and there's two, I'm going to do this one the other way because we could do if it's not null or empty. It's the same thing as anything else. You just put the exclamation there. If the string is not, that means if it's not null or empty, you get to say reg exe add reg path new user sid type is a string is the new user sid force out hosts, and you can say log sid new user sid into registry. Into registry. And then else, you know, you can do new user sid not found, or however we have it up there. That's the idea. The whole point is we're capturing the sid. And of course, I'm going to flip back to the lab, and you saw it here before. There it is, the new user sid. So we're capturing all these user attributes before going into the before going into the switching of them. So basically, let me back up a second. This runs in the beginning. The machine reboots. When the new user signs in, we immediately capture this and go into our last reboot, which is why we're now calling it the final boot. This is where we are changing the ownership. So there are three pieces to this. Maybe more than three. I should not have quantified them. So we have to kill app. We have to kill the AAD broker plugin folder of the old profile first. That is crucial. The AAD broker, and I'll show you in the lab, and if you've been following this, you know this has always been a problem. So we cannot skip this part. It is critical, otherwise the old profile stays. When you look in C users, in this case, Rick, app data, local, packages, this Microsoft.AAD.BrokerPlugin folder has kind of all that cache from the current account. Now, because we're going to be taking this over with the new account, we don't want any remnants left in. So this has to go before we reclaim ownership. So kill the AAD broker plugin. We could say delete. So that's what we're actually doing. Maybe I was angry. Okay, after we do that, we have to then deal with the user profile. So we are going to delete user profile, the new user profile that was just created. Delete new user profile. Okay, and we want to change the original profile SID. Then we have to do some registry cleanup to make that work, which only applies if the device is starting in an Enter-ID join state. For traditional domain join, that registry cleanup isn't needed, but we're going to get to that in a whole new, when we talk about doing this with domain join, there's probably going to be an update before then. We still have to do some work. Anyway, so function get user info, and that'll be for both users. So here is essentially everything we need. Oop. So we need the reg path equals settings dot reg path. When you're retrieving, you actually have to do it as a key with the colon in there. So we make a reg key variable that's registry reg path. There we go. We're going to then need okay, so the way we do this now is we actually get everything from this array. So again, there's a few ways to do everything here. So original user SID, these are all the registry values we want to hit, because remember, everything everything is in the same registry key. So we kind of just want to go through and get new user SID, original user SID, original username, original profile path. So we can just iterate through. So original user SID, we got original username. Oop. We got original profile path. And then of course we have the new user SID. So the way I did it here is I actually iterated through creating the arrays. So I went for each user in user array. We set the value of that because we already have the first part. We already have the name, right? That's going to be the name of the property. So the value just has to be get item property value. Path is reg key. Name is user, right? And then we could say if the string is not null or empty, right? Exclamation point is not null or empty. If the value we retrieved is not null or empty, what do we do? So the way I did it in the GitHub version is we did new variable, name is the user, value is the value, scope is global, and we force that. And that means that I'll be able to call, so that means I'll have an original user SID variable. I'll have a new user SID variable. So I could do it that way. In fact, that's how we are doing it. And we ultimately log that out. We're able to say log user is value. And just to show you in the logs, because you could see all this, right? See Microsoft, see program data, Microsoft, Intune, management extension logs. So when we read the final boot log, you can see here, getting info from registry, it just literally spits all that. Original user SID, original username, original profile path, new user SID, right? And those variables work as we pass them throughout the entire piece here. So that's how it'll pipe out. Cool. So let's go back. All right. So now that we got the user info, right, we have to delete the AAD.BrokerPlugin, which we did as a function. So what we're going to do is we're going to say remove AAD.BrokerPlugin. Now, as far as everything being a function, it just makes it easier to manage and to see what ran and what didn't. And if for some reason you want to comment a function out, it's easy to do that without changing too much of the source code. So yeah, it's good. So there's two parameters here. We have the actual original profile path, which is the original profile path that we got from up here. So we're just kind of bringing that into the function because it's a global variable. And then string is the AAD.BrokerPlugin. And what's that? Well, that's what we're looking for. That is going to be Microsoft.aad.brokerplugin _*. Okay, and the reason we put the wildcard there is, so I've seen scenarios where that is the same in the underscore, but just in case, and because that's also kind of wild to have to write out, there's only going to be one AAD.BrokerPlugin folder. We don't have to write the whole thing. We can leave that as a wildcard and get away with it. So we're going to leave that there. And then what we're going to do is we are going to say we're going to call the path. So the AAD.Broker path, because we want to get the full path of that, and we're just going to assemble this. So we're going to say it is get child item. The path is going to be the original profile path / app data, because remember, this is C users, Rick Jones, yeah, C user is Rick Jones. Then we could just dash app data, dash local, dash packages. Okay, recurse. So we're going to look through everything where the object name matches AAD.BrokerPlugin. So when it matches Microsoft.AAD.broker.plugin underscore wildcard. With that, when we get that match, we select the object full name and we return full name. Actually don't need that. Okay, so now that we have that, we can just make sure it exists. So I did the string is not null or empty. You can literally just if test path AAD broker path. So if it exists, do something. If it doesn't exist, don't do something. I think what I did is I checked to make sure it wasn't null or empty, just because that was the thing I was using. If string is null or empty, AAD broker path, I would log AAD broker plugin not found. Otherwise, else, can't forget the else, although I probably did somewhere else because I'm dragging today. Remove item path AAD broker path recurse force and log that we removed it. Broker plugin AAD, there's no dot there, doesn't matter. Removed. Okay. Okay, so with that gone, we're free to take over the old profile, and now we're gonna say now we have to delete the profile that was just created. Okay, I'm gonna pull this up again to show what we're doing, right? So because this is the state we're in now, right, this where we have these two, we took AAD broker plugin out of the original green here, and in the orange one we want to remove this box. We want to dump the profile that was just created because we already have the SID. So if we go back, now we have to delete that. So first we have to get it. So we're going to do a function called delete new user profile. Okay, and simple, there's only one parameter here, and that's the new user SID. New user SID equals new user SID because we got it up top. The new profile is very simply get the sim instance. Yep. Get the sim instance. Class name is Win32 user profile, where the object, and I'm sure you see where we're going with this, SID equals new user SID. That's it. That's the new profile. So then we can just remove it. Remove sim instance, input object, new profile verbose, out, null. And congratulations, we removed the new profile. So now what we'll do is we'll change the ownership of the old one. Now that it's up for grabs, so to speak. Function, change original user. I think we can just do change original profile owner. All right, there's a little bit more to this one. So we need two things. Both are already declared, so we need the new user SID. We still need that because that's what's going to take over. And then we need the original SID. So we need the original user SID. So just like the new profile, we're going to get the original user profile. I'll just call that original profile. Original. Sometimes words look weird the more you type them. Original profile is the same way we got the new one. Get the sim instance. Class name Win32. User profile. Where object. This could actually probably become a function as well if we're going function crazy. Original user SID. Okay. Now we got that. Before we do anything to it, we have to declare some new arguments. So we're going to call these the change arguments. And, oh, that came out weird. There we go. The change arguments are going to be as follows. New owner SID equals new user SID. And flags has to be 0 for some reason. Anyway, now what we do is we call that original profile and we invoke a sim method on it. The method name is ironically change owner, unironically, and the arguments for that are going to be our change arguments. Done. So this was long. It's probably one of the longer ones. There were a lot of going through and editing it. I was looking at a lot of places to possibly cut, and I did cut down quite a bit, but I think it's important to go through this to understand the whole process. There's still a lot more in the script to go over that we could deep dive into specific areas, but this whole flow of doing everything is super important. There is one more piece after the changing the ownership. It's some registry cleanup. I recommend there's not a whole lot to talk about there. It's pretty obvious from the script. If enough folks want me to talk about it, I'll talk about it, or if you just want to hop in the Discord. But this at least, goes through the whole the user process of reclaiming the SID. So enjoy. 5, 4, 3